Hello, Planeswalkers! Andrew here with a new sort of deck tech video. Normally, I just pick a commander and build the deck from scratch. This time, I wanted to take one of the new precons and upgrade it instead. And among the new D&D themed decks, Sephirus of the Hidden Ways intrigued me the most. Sephirus lets you venture into the dungeon whenever one of your creatures goes into the grave from anywhere, but only once each turn. Whenever you finish a dungeon, she respawns a creature from the grave to your field. Now, this precon is actually pretty focused right out of the box. It's geared towards sacking and milling creatures to trigger Sephirus, as well as resurrecting them and getting some ETBs in the process. But this default list can be tuned quite a bit. Obviously, the way that I upgrade the deck may not perfectly fit your needs. Maybe you have deeper pockets and a higher level playgroup, in which case you can very loosely follow this video as just some suggestions. If you have a smaller budget, then the precon will serve you perfectly fine. However, if you happen to have a bit of disposable income to buy a $10 to $15 card here and there, then I'd say this video is perfect for you. Let's start off with the cards I ended up keeping from the precon. Ultimately, I end up cutting about a third of the deck. Starting off the survivors is Min, Wily Illusionist, who creates illusion tokens that buff each other, and lets you cheat out permanents whenever one of them dies. I kept her because we do run a couple other illusions, and cheating out permanents can be really handy. Phantasmal Image is one such illusion, and it can copy any creature, letting us get an extra ETB trigger. Phantom Steed exiles one of your creatures when it enters, and when it attacks, you make a copy of the exiled creature that's also attacking. And since it dies at your end step, it also triggers Sephirus, since tokens go to the grave before they stop existing. Radiant Solar has you venture whenever it or another creature enters your field, and you can discard her to venture and gain 3, which also triggers Sephirus. Midnight Pathlighter makes your whole army almost unblockable, and has you venture whenever you deal combat damage to a player. Baleful Strix is a classic 1/1 Death Touch flyer that draws you one on entry. Solemn Simulacrum searches you up a basic on entry and draws you one on death. Hama Pashar doubles up your dungeon effects, which is very nice. Burnished Heart is just a nice colorless land searcher that also sacks itself. Muldrifter draws you 2 on entry, and playing it normally leaves it open to be blinked for more card draw. Or it can be evoked to get its ETB, and then it dies, which can trigger Sephirus. Cloudblazer gains you 2 and draws you 2 on entry. Doomed Necromancer can be sacked to return a creature to your field. I went back and forth in keeping Nihilor, but ultimately, I think he fits in well. On entry, he has you tap up to 1 creature you control for each opponent, and then gain control of one of the given opponent's creatures with power less than or equal to the tapped creature's power, for as long as you have Nihilor. Also, whenever you attack with a creature you control but don't own, its owner loses 2 and you gain 2. Given his synergy with Agent of Treachery, one of our upgrades, and with some of our sack outlets that let you dumpster the stolen creatures, I decided to keep him. Obsessive Stitcher can be tapped to draw and discard, which can be a discarded creature for Sephirus, or she can be tapped and sacked to return a creature from your grave to the field. Shriekmaw kills a creature on entry. Sunblast Angel destroys all tapped creatures on entry. Immovable Rod can be tapped to essentially turn a target creature into a useless stump. You can choose not to untap it, and whenever it does untap, you venture. Wand of Orcus gives the equipped creature and all your zombies Death Touch when it attacks. And when the equipped creature hits a player, you make 2/2 zombies equal to the damage dealt. And as a reminder, those zombies dying trigger Sephirus. Rod of Absorption is super cool, exiling every instant and sorcery anyone casts as it resolves. And you can pay X, tap and sack it, to cast any number of those exiled spells with a total mana value less than or equal to X for free. It's a real interesting way of copying your opponent's spells. Lightning Greaves are just a great defense for Sephirus and our other creatures. Wayfarer's Bauble searches you up a basic, and it got some new nice art. Arcane Signet and Soul Ring are no-brainers, they're just classic mana rocks. Felwar Stone is a mana rock that can make mana of any color an opponent's land could make. Commander's Sphere taps for any of your colors. Revivify has you roll a d20 and add the number of your creatures who went to the grave this turn to the result. Then if you get 14 or less, you return all those creatures to your hand, and if you get 15 or more, you return them to the field. Grave Endeavor has you roll 2d10 and return a creature from your grave to the field with a +1/+1 counters on it equal to one of the results, then each opponent loses life and you gain life equal to the other result. Swords to Plowshares, Despark, and Utter End are great removal spells. Vanish into Memory exiles one of your creatures, draws you cards equal to its power, then returns it on your next upkeep, causing you to then discard cards equal to its toughness. Extract Brain is an X cost that has target opponent reveal X cards from their hand, and then you can cast a spell from among them for free. Arcane Endeavor has you roll 2d8s, draw cards equal to one result, and then you can cast a spell for free with mana value less than or equal to the other result. Thorough Investigation has you investigate whenever you attack, making a clue that you can pay 2 into and sack to draw one, and whenever you sack a clue, you venture. Propaganda defends you by making your opponents pay 2 for each creature attacking you. The lands we kept are Choked Estuary, Arcane Sanctum, Sunken Hollow, Nimbus Maze, Port Town, Evolving Wilds, Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, The Thriving Lands, Azorius Chancery, Darkwater Catacombs, Demir Aqueduct, Orzhov Basilica, and Prairie Stream. All the cards I kept I personally deemed to work in favor of the deck's goals more than the ones that I cut. Naturally, my cuts are subjective opinions. So what did I cut? Well, if you have the deck list open, you can use the process of elimination to figure that out, but to save you the trouble, let's go over them anyways. Bucknard's Everfull Purse. I just don't like how you only have a 25% chance at the purse giving you more than it costs, and even then it has to go around the board again before you can use it again, giving your opponents an advantage. They can also just hold it up so you don't ever get it back. Clay Golem is a 4/4 vanilla most of the time, requiring an extra 6 mana to do anything interesting. And all it does then is gain 1 to 8 counters and destroy a thing. Component Pouch is just slow. You need to tap it to get a counter, just to then tap it to spend said counter on mana. I don't like. Hostage Taker is alright, but spending 4 mana to temporarily exile something is a lot, even being able to cast that something. Wall of Omens is doubly bad in my book for being a generic wall whose only effect is drawing a card. Ashen Rider is just 2 Utter Ends on a creature, and it can put in work for sure, but for 8 mana, that's just too much, in my opinion. Gaia Reach Sanctum just lets you pay into it to make everyone draw one and discard one. Discarding is good for triggering Sephiroth, but having to use a land drop for it and giving your opponents more options really hurts it. Sun Titan is just barely not good enough in my opinion. Esper Panorama feels like a worse Evolving Wilds, which already set a low bar, but at least you can sack Evolving Wilds for free. Plague Crafter is in the same boat as Sun Titan, just barely not good enough in my opinion. It's certainly a great choice to keep in if you happen to not like some of my upgrade suggestions. Minimus Containment is hilarious and can neutralize a threat, but if that threat is someone's commander, then all they have to do is sack it and send it to the command zone, which also gives them mana. Dungeon Map just feels like a card you'd only use if you were desperate for more Venture cards. 6 mana to Venture is a lot, and a 3 mana cost rock that only makes 1 mana just kinda sucks. Curator of Mysteries just lets you scry when you discard, which is just underwhelming to me. Victimize does work with our strategy, it's not awful, but I just think we can do better. Cataclysmic Gearhulk is a board wipe on a stick, which is definitely good, just again, not quite there for me. Champion of Wits has you draw cards equal to its power, so usually 2, then discard 2, and I just don't like effects that have you discard the same number as you draw, at least not when you're in blue. Although it does work with our strategy, so you can keep it if you want. Eternal Dragon just costs too much for its effect for me to want to run it. Forbidden Alchemy is just sort of boring, but it can trigger Sephiroth, so it's not awful. High Market is just a bad sack outlet, taking up a land slot. Karmic Guide would also work, but I have cards I'd rather run. Merfolk Looter, I already talked about this kind of effect. Meteor Golem is alright, but it's 7 mana. Murder of Crows, not much to say here. Necromantic Selection has a great effect for this deck, but it's 7 mana. Necrotic Sliver, because I don't think slivers should be run without other slivers. Reassembling Skeleton and Ronom Unicorn are just boring. Terramorphic doesn't seem very necessary here, and Unburial Rites just costs a lot for its effect. To be fair, Some of the cuts I made are cards that work perfectly fine for Sephiroth, they're just not what I personally want for the deck. Up next we have upgrades.
Upgrades, people, upgrades! That's how we make the dough.
Field of the Dead can make you zombies to toss into your sack outlets. Limrith, Desert Doom, can draw you a card, and if you're under 3 cards after that, you draw up to 3, getting you more gas. Dire Undercurrents lets you choose a player to draw 1 when a blue creature enters your field, and choose a player to discard 1 when a black creature enters. Both effects are very helpful here. Ashnod's Altar is one of our free sack outlets, generating 2 colorless when you sacrifice a creature. Archaeomancer's Map is a pretty decent white ramp spell, especially in Commander, when you have more opponents playing more lands. Thassa, Deep Dwelling, blinks a creature at your end steps, triggering ETBs, including some venture effects. Deadeye Navigator can soulbound to a creature when either enters, and then you can pay to blink it or its bonded creature. Amanatu, the Fate Shifter, is a blink effect that ties into an infinite combo we'll go over later. Chromatic Lantern can tap for any color and lets our lands do the same, which is, in my opinion, a must-have in decks with 3 or more colors. Douthie Voidwalker is basically unblockable, exiles your opponent's cards when they enter their graves, and you can tap and sack it to play one of those cards for free. For 2 mana! It's pretty ridiculous. Mind's Eye can help you keep your hand full. A Sararak, the Archlich, may require you to complete Tomb of Annihilation for him to stick around, but it is the shortest of the dungeons, and you only need to run it once. A Sararak makes a 2/2 zombie when he attacks for each opponent, unless that player sacks a creature. Panharmonicon doubles up our ETBs. Altar of Dementia is another free sack outlet, which mills target player equal to the sacked creature's power. Spark Double can copy Sephiroth, allowing her Venture ability to trigger an extra time each turn. Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, is, surprisingly enough, not just here as a win con, although he certainly can be that for you. He's here for his Mill 2 Draw 1 effect that you can use every turn. Agent of Treachery steals a permanent on entry, and he pairs well with Nihilor. Conjurer's Closet blinks a creature on your end steps. Altar of the Brood mills every opponent for 1 whenever a permanent enters your field. It's mean, but it is a possible win con. Peregrine Drake costs 5 and untaps 5 lands on entry. Pairing it with Deadeye Navigator makes infinite mana, since you pay to blink Peregrine Drake with Deadeye, untap 5 lands, you tap and float the 5 lands, rinse and repeat for infinite mana in all your colors, since you net 3 mana every time. Teferi's Agel's Insight doubles up your draw effects, except for your first draw on each of your draw steps. Nadar lets you venture whenever he enters or attacks, and he's one option for our infinite combo later. Speaking of the infinite combo, Felidar Guardian is another piece, which blinks another permanent on entry. Triumphant Adventurer has first strike on your turn, Death Touch, and lets you venture when he attacks. Stranic Resonator can copy a triggered ability, which can either be a venture effect or a dungeon effect. Folio of Fancies can draw everyone cards and even mill your opponents. Lab Maniac wins you the game if you deck out. Borrowin ventures on entry, and when she attacks, if you finished a dungeon, she returns a mana value 3 or less creature from your grave to the field. Planar Ally is a flyer that ventures on attack. Oath of Teferi lets you double up on Planeswalker abilities and is a nice piece for our combo. Yuan Ti Fangblade has Death Touch and ventures on hit. Displacer Beast ventures on entry and you can pay to bounce it to your hand. Now, for this big combo I've mentioned several times. This idea comes from EK Plays Cards over on Twitter. You need Amanatu, Oath of Teferi, Felidar Guardian, and Nadar, or any creature that ventures on entry. You -1 Amanatu to blink Nadar, venturing. Then, with Oath of Teferi letting you -1 her again, you blink Felidar Guardian, letting you blink Amanatu, resetting her loyalty counters, and allowing you to repeat the process. Since 2 of the dungeons have you draw cards, and the last one hurts you, you can't actually run them infinitely. But you can run Lost Mine of Phandelver for as many times as you have cards in your deck, burning your opponents for that much damage with the Dark Pool Room. Alternatively, you can use Peregrine Drake and Deadeye Navigator to generate infinite mana, and then use Deadeye to infinitely blink Nadar. If an opponent has too much life for you to burn them in Lost Mine, you can run Dungeon of the Mad Mage instead. You can go until you hit Jace or Lab Maniac, with the final room as effect, letting you play them for free, and then you can safely deck yourself. As a general PSA, since these dungeon effects can go on for a while, please plan in advance which dungeon you're going to run and familiarize yourself with its effects, so you can get through them all in a timely manner. No one wants to watch you play Solitaire. I should know, I've been that person. I shuffled around the basic lands as well, switching over to 5 plains, 6 islands, and 5 swamps. And that's how I'll personally be upgrading the Sephiroth dungeon crawling precon. Let me know how you would upgrade the deck in the comments below, or if you do actually like my list for it. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and subscribe for more. Thank you all for watching, and have a great day, y'all.